This episode is brought to you by Naked Fig Soap. Shop over a dozen handcrafted artisan soaps locally sourced and made in Arizona using the finest non-toxic intentional ingredients. Naked Fig Soap also offers facial care products along with accessories like soap dishes, soap saver bags, and more.
Visit their website at nakedfigsoap.com and use code DRUMMINGUP, all one word, for 20% off online orders. And that is the best place to find her now.
Yes.
She doesn't really have a storefront so much as she has
As of right now.
Yeah, as of right now,
Yes.
she has her products in certain locations,
Yes.
which again is the best place to find her is at her nakedfigsoap.com website.
Yes.
Or her socials. Instagram is a great spot to find her. Ask her any questions where she's going to be at like a farmer's market.
Yes.
You can find all that out. Or
But coming up, she's
Yeah.
moving to bigger and better opportunities.
Yes, absolutely. And we're very happy to hear that because,
Yes.
we just want to
She's
make
one
sure
of our
she's doing
favorite,
okay.
favorite companies.
Oh, yeah. Whenever we're getting low, we always place our order.
Yes.
And again, use that code drumming up,
Yes.
all one word, to get that 20% off discount.
For sure.
nakedfigsoap.com. It'll be in the show notes. We'll have her website. And then the best thing to do is from the website, go find her socials, follow her. That helps her. And by you doing that, it helps us because we know you're listening and we know you're buying her great products. She also offers tattoo care and everything too.
Yes,
so
she does.
just a ton of stuff that she does. It's all locally made and everything. So what was that website again?
That is nakedfigsoap.com.
Using code drumming
Drumming
up,
Up.
all one word, for 20% off at checkout.
Hi there, this is Julian of Gorad, and you are listening to Drumming Up Conversation. Hell yeah.
Drumming up conversation. Drumming up, yeah. Drumming up, yeah. Drumming up, yeah. Conversation. Drumming up, yeah. Drumming up, yeah. Drumming up, yeah. Conversation. Drumming up, yeah. Drumming up, yeah. Drumming up, yeah. Conversation. Drumming up, yeah. Drumming up, yeah. Drumming up, yeah. Conversation. Yeah.
All right. So today our guest is Todd Bostock.
From Dos
Dos
Cabezas
Cabezas
Winery. How are you today?
So far, so good. I'm alive. It's Saturday. It's June. Weather's outstanding here right now.
July.
Oh, that's right. It's July. Yeah, it's July. So, yeah, weather's great. It's like the best time to be here.
Great. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm happy about it.
Yeah, for sure. So did you want to give us a little background of your winery, please?
Yeah, so Dos Cabezas Wineworks. The winery started in 1994 by a guy named Al Buell. So Al, when he retired, was the head civilian at Fort Huachuca, and he'd come to Arizona from Virginia. So Al had kind of seen the Virginia wine industry grow up, and then saw what folks like Kent Callaghan and the folks over at Sonoita Vineyards were doing here, and wanted to get involved. So Al made some wine at home, entered a bottle in the state fair wine competition and won a blue ribbon. We checked for $3.76,
Wow.
and used that to convince his wife that they should buy a vineyard that was for sale. So it was this vineyard it's actually still the oldest vineyard in the state that is planted in Wilcox. Al bought that vineyard with the intent to sell fruit to wineries, but he wasn't getting paid for the fruit he was giving to wineries, except with the exception of Kent Callaghan and Callaghan Vineyards. And so at one point, Kent suggested that Al start a winery so he could get paid for the fruit he was growing, and that Kent offered to be the winemaker. So Kent Callaghan was actually the original winemaker when the winery started in '94. And then I started working for Al, and then winemaker Frank Cristofano and their partner Sam Pillsbury in 2002. So that's when I jumped on board, and then somehow talked my wife and my parents into helping buy the partners out in 2006 when we moved the winery here to Sonoita, where we've been ever since.
Nice.
What made you want to go into it full time?
Yeah, that's a good question. I wasn't that good at anything else, right? Like nothing had clicked for me, So, I I toured most of the universities and colleges in the state, did a tour duty there. And, I was a math major, I was an art major, I was an engineering major, I was a business major, and none of it really clicked for me. And, I dropped out, went back, dropped out, went back. And then at one point started a failing printing company, and, was never satisfied with that really. But we didn't grow up in a house, or I didn't grow up in a house where there was wine around. My parents didn't drink anything at all when we were growing up. But it was always interesting to me. My grandma recently passed away, traveled and was interested in food and wine. And so, I had the exposure there. And growing up, I had some close friend whose family would have dinner, at the table together, and they'd always pour whatever they were drinking into little cordial glasses for kids to try. And that was always, it was always interesting to me. Anyway, so at some point, we did a print shop across the street from one of those places that sell like the brew your own brew stuff, and ponied up the $100, which at the time seemed like a fortune, to buy one of those little kits, with like juice concentrate to make wine at home. It was interesting in the sense that I fermented something, but it was uninteresting in the sense that it didn't taste in any way interesting. It wasn't that satisfying to follow the directions. It's like if you get Legos for like a little kit to make a car, and it's like put the pieces together like this, and you do it, and you're like, yep, there's the car. It's not that satisfying, right? So I want to get my hands on grapes, but it felt like I think it was Sean Thackeray described it as it's like sitting down to play the piano and realizing you have a knack for it. And that's kind of how it felt, it was a good mix of all the things I was interested in. I was interested in food. I was interested in, and I'd done a little tour. I started culinary school at Phoenix College. Worked in restaurants. I liked making things, and it's satisfying, in an artistic way that way. But and then work, doing stuff outside, and there's a nice seasonality to it. So we're just going into gearing up for harvest season. We're going to bottle the stuff from the reds from 2020, some late release whites from 2021, and then we're going to move into harvest where it's go in the winery all the time. We're coming out of the growing season where we're in a vineyard, and then you go into marketing season in the fall where you're selling wine. And so it's just about when you get tired of one thing, you can move on to the next thing. So it's interesting that way. But anyway, I'm way off track. Can you hear those beeps? Are those notifications coming through?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
I could turn them off, but it'll take the whole 30 minutes.
No,
You're good.
you're good.
All right. So anyway, so I saw that UC Davis had these extension programs. And I was always interested in college. I just never understood it. I didn't if I had figured out how it worked, or if I was smarter in that way, maybe I would have finished one of the things. But I just didn't get it. I didn't understand how it works. I liked it. And I didn't know what to do. I thought, in all honesty, I thought engineer. I couldn't believe looking through the catalog that they had a whole college for engineering. I thought engineers were the guys that drove the trains, and I was and a whole school for the train drivers. But I liked that there were all these things you could pick, So I had a hard time not just picking whatever classes looked interesting. Anyway, so I thought UC Davis had an extension program, and at the time they would ship you the lectures on VHS tape, and you'd watch them, and you'd do the tests you'd mail in your tests. You'd have to get a local proctor, and then since I was doing it at home, when we got into wines and regions, I would go buy wine from whatever region we were studying and have it while I was watching the lectures. And then at this point, I felt like it was something I wanted to pursue, and I figured I'd just move to California and make wine, right? I'd get a job in a cellar somewhere. But we got to the part about regional American wine, and I thought, oh shit, I should go see if there's wine from Arizona. So I went to AJ's on Central and Camelback, and asked the guy, what Arizona wine he recommended, and he recommended two. He said, either the Callaghan or the Dos Cabezas, and the Callaghan bottle was $2 cheaper, so I bought that. I'm sorry, yeah, I said the Dos Cabezas. Dos Cabezas bottle was $2 cheaper, so I bought that. It was a Sauvignon Blanc. So I took it home, and I had it, watching this lecture, the sun goes down, and it there was this epiphany, like it tasted as good as anything I'd had from anywhere, but it was different, it was unique, it was distinctive, and that was exciting to me. And the idea that I could do it, maybe do it in this state in Arizona, this unique spot that I think is pretty great, was really exciting to me. And it was also really exciting then the more I kind of dug in to think that you could be a part of figuring a place out, like what it tastes like, and be part of like the food and wine, like the culture growing up together, like they do, like you go places like Alsace or Burgundy, like where the food and wine like they like need each other, right? It just felt like a unique opportunity to be a part of that, which is really exciting to me. So I drove down, immediately tracked down the guys at Callaghan and Dos Cabezas and tried to offer to work for them. And kind of simultaneously, I talked about making wine from a kid. I wanted to get my hands on grapes, and I couldn't get any from anybody in Arizona. These guys, and I understand now, but at the time I thought they were jerks, man. They wouldn't give me any grapes. But it's kind of tough to it's just kind of tough to work with somebody to get a tiny lot of fruit when you're dealing with tons.
Yeah.
But anyway, long story short, I was talking to my folks about it, and by this time they had become interested in wine. And my dad had an old business partner that had a vineyard in Oregon, and he said maybe that guy, this is their first harvest. Maybe this was in 2002. Maybe he can sell you some grapes. So I reached out to him. He said sure thing. So I flew up to Oregon, packed all this fruit into these 2 70-gallon igloo coolers, and put them on an airplane back to Phoenix. Had a lot of explaining to do, like in security. 2 giant coolers like duct taped shut, like crawling. And so I was making this wine in my garage in Phoenix, and then I came down and reached out to the Kent at Callaghan and Frank and Al at Dos Cabezas and Sam, and wanted to see if they would let me help make wine. And as luck would have it, Frank Cristofano, who was the winemaker at Dos Cabezas at the time, was really good friends with this guy, Dick Erath, who was, really one of the pivotal guys in starting the Oregon wine industry. And the Erath vineyard was right across the street from the vineyard I'd gotten his grapes. And there was this kind of weird kismet thing that, you just like show up and you get lucky. And it just kind of worked out. So they needed help. I was willing to help. Weird connection through Erath. This vineyard was across the street. And then eventually we ended up becoming good friends with Erath. He planted a vineyard here. Maybe we're like skipping ahead too far, but we started working together in that vineyard here in Arizona, and then eventually we purchased it from him and now farm that vineyard. So to answer your question, good morning. I'm doing great.
What grapes do you grow at your vineyards?
So we grow too many, quite honestly. I mean, one of the fun things, but one of the challenges is, again, we'll say at Oregon, if you go to Oregon, you're pretty sure you're going to grow Pinot Noir. Probably maybe a little Chardonnay, maybe a little Pinot Gris, but you're going to grow Pinot Noir. If you're in, but you're probably growing Cabernet Sauvignon. Where here, since it's back to like being an emerging region and being in the U.S., so if you have to imagine, folks are bringing grapes over from Europe, to what they think might grow in places like New York and the Finger Lakes, or in Oregon, or in Washington, or in California. Mostly like California probably, but they're not looking for stuff, or historically weren't looking for things that might grow in Arizona. And it's really tough to import varieties. If you go through the proper channels, it has to sit in quarantine with the USDA for a few years to make sure it doesn't have some crazy pest on it that's going to wipe out the industry. And then you might have to have it cleaned up. So you're talking like it could be a decade process. And there's only, I think, 2 places. There's Davis in California, and then it's Cornell in New York. We worked really hard with the U of A to try to set up, a way to do that through, Arizona, thinking like the desert Southwest, like, Southern California, Baja, New Mexico, Texas, thinking it would be cool to have somebody focused on that, but it turns out it's a lot of work. So what do we grow? So we grow around 30 different varieties. We're always trying new stuff because, we have enough sun that we can ripen about anything. Our challenges are unique. We need things that have thick skins so they don't rot. We want things that bud out later because we're at high elevation, so we want to avoid spring frost. We want things that are cold tolerant because it does get very cold here in the winter because we're at high elevation. And then you want things that retain acidity so that it's easy for us to accumulate sugar the challenge is retaining acidity. So we're looking for all those things, and every year something new shows up from a region that's similar to ours, or you try something that you realize you can maybe make in a different way here and express it differently. So we grow a lot of stuff. We're always adding something, trying to eliminate things that are obvious losers. But some of the big stuff we grow, people might be familiar with, things like from the Rhone, Grenache, Syrah, Mourvedre, from Spain, Tempranillo, Graciano, for reds, stuff that's known in France, Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, Petit Verdot, Petit Syrah, which I consider an American grape, even though it's from France. And then, like some stuff from Italy, and some oddballs, Sangiovese, Aliatico. We just tried Lagrange and it didn't work out, so we replaced it with Tinta Bairrada, or Baga, they call it, from Portugal, as far as, and then Vranic from Macedonia or Montenegro, really cool red grape that seems promising. Tanat, the Caligans made some really great wines from. And then, as far as whites, Petit Manseng, Viognier Rouzon, Picpoul Blanc, Malvasia, Muscat, Riesling, Kerner from Alto Adige, which is kind of cool. We just added Chenin a few years ago for a sparkling program, Parellada from Spain for sparkling. The one from southern France, Claret Blanche for sparkling, Vermentino, and on and on.
Wow, you cover them all.
Yeah. But so it's a unique spot we have here, right? So right now we're going to monsoons, seem a little early. You never know what that's going to look like. So you want stuff that is going to ripen in different windows, so that let's say we get a ton of rain over 2 weeks. You don't want everything ripening during those 2 weeks or your host, so you want some stuff that ripens before that, the middle, late. You want stuff, I think of like through cooking. Actually, I've got a friend, Charlene Badman, has got a restaurant, F&B. The way she talks about salads, he's like, you make salads out of that anyway. You just got to make sure you got all the parts. So you want something, something crunchy, something maybe chewy, salty, sweet. You just want the stuff, and you want it to work together. So it's the same thing with wine. We want some fat, we want some acid, we want some floral stuff, maybe some mineral stuff. You just want to make sure you have all those parts. So no matter what weather you're faced with, you can put them together and still make something that tastes good and tells the story of the year. But it's got to taste good. Like, it can be good. Whatever. Nobody's going to sit through a lame story. no matter how interesting the premise.
How many bottles of wine do you typically get out of a barrel?
So, I think the barrel most people imagine when they think of a barrel is probably the, Burgundy or Bordeaux barrel, which is a 225 or 228 liter barrel, which is about 60 gallons. And so you get about 22 to 24 cases from a barrel that size. And the odd thing about barrels is the volumes are nominal, right? Because it's more like a shape, and they're made out of wood, so they're plus or minus, but we don't use a lot of those barrels because of where we are. So I don't think we've purchased a barrel that size since like 2014. We've gone to larger cooperage, bigger barrels, mostly 300 and 500 with some 400 and 600 mixed in liters, 3, 4, 5, and 600 liters. And then even larger than that, some big 2,000 liter, 1,500 liter, they call them like Foudre or boat. And the reason we like those is because our climate's so, unique. It's really dry, and so you get a lot of evaporation with potential oxidation. And then, as I think we do a better job farming, we want less overt oak flavor in our wines, so we like those bigger vessels. So to answer your question, 22 cases.
Perfect.
12 models each.
Yeah.
And we noticed also that one of your reds and one of your whites has a dog on each of them, a black lab, looks like a yellow lab. Anything with those dogs? Are they mascots or?
Yeah, so it's wild. It's just back to like saying yes, showing up, listening to what's out there and responding. We used to have this really ugly label for our pink wine. I made it, so I could say it's ugly. It was ugly. I was getting kind of sick of it. And one day I was out in the vineyard and my phone rang and it was Chris Bianco from Pizzeria Bianco. And he's been a really great customer of ours, a good friend, really great supporter. But he called out of the blue and he's like, I got this painting of this rose that's been hanging in the pizzeria. It's falling apart. So I got to take it down. That my dad painted and I think it'd make a great wine label. Do you want it? And I said, yes. And so we made that the label for the rosé we made called Pink. And then a few years later, we decided we were going to make white. We'd made a wine called White, but we decided that we're going to have like a cohesive wine lineup: white, pink, red. And the idea with those is, one of the big complaints about emerging wine regions is that the wines can be expensive, and you got to get people, like you want them to try it, and you also don't want it to be so precious necessarily. You want people to, buy it, drink it, share it with people. That's the whole point. Have a good time with it. So anyway, so we decided we're going to do white, pink, and red at a low price point for us. Some restaurants could afford. So we needed labels now for the white, and we already had the wine red, the same thing, ugly label. So we went back to Chris and said, can we get a couple more paintings from Dad for his wine bottles? And he said, sure. And then some time went on, and he was like, I'm going to do it. And I was like, that's great. I think that'll be great too. I think it'll work out no matter what. But we were kind of like, back and forth. And then my wife was like, we got to get these labels printed. Got to bottle these wines. So she was in the Cane Bianco, the sandwich shop, and sent me this picture of this white lab and said, what about this? What about this? And I was like, oh, that's like the family dog. I'm not going to ask for the family dog. And then literally the next morning he called and said, I got these two paintings, these dogs. I think it'd be great. So that's how we got him. So the white dog's Nikki, the Bianco family dog, and the black dog. I'm sorry, I got that backwards. Black dog is Nikki, white dog is Ace. Anyway, so it feels like, whatever, it just feels, I like them, they feel good. They're comfortable. I love the Biancos. I love that style of painting. And I think it's just like a comfortable, nice thing to look at. And that's it.
So going on your website, the write-ups of your wine, the descriptions of them are really super entertaining. Who writes those?
I have to write them. That's one of the jobs I guess. But yeah, that's me. I'll take credit for that, or whatever. I'll own that. But yeah, I mean, you have to do it. But it always is not irritating, but it's just, it is what it is. Like it gets boring. Like if you're gonna ask some people to read something, at least I don't think it should be the same stuff they've already read. Like tastes like cherries and tobacco, good with steak. You're like, all right, like that's what they all say, right? It's just boring. And that being, like I said, I grew up in a family where, like, anyway, I grew up with I grew up in the 80s, right? So my language for tastes is like based on like trick cereal and you know what I mean? It's not like black currants and you know what I mean? And then in experiences, like, there's stuff like Cabernet Franc that, I think that's one of the cool things about wine. In fact, like there's a bottle of Riesling I'm going to open today. And I think it's a great example. I think one of the cool things about it is you can like travel. It can take you to a different place without having to buy a plane ticket. Like you smell Riesling, it's like, you're like zoomed into, Germany. Like it just smells like it's so distinctive. Anyway, so Cab Franc for me, it reminds me of, I used to go play golf with my dad when I was a kid, and I keep scoring the cart, and it's like that. It has this mix of like little golf pencils and dry grass, and so when I smell that, that's how I would describe it. You know what I mean? So it's just anyway. So if you're gonna like convey something to somebody, and like I could say it's like black currants, but dude, who knows what black currants taste like? I mean, you have like a vague idea. It
Right.
not give you any idea what that wine tastes like. It's like it's just to make you so you can be like, oh, I know what black currants smell like or taste like, and you don't. Reminds me of what's that guy's name? Richard Feynman, that physicist dude, used to tell a story about his dad walking out in the woods with him, and he would be like, they'd see a bird, and he'd be like, you and I can look at that bird, we can describe that bird, we can, we're no different than anybody else, and we can know as much as there is to know about that bird without ever knowing the name. but there'll be somebody that knows the name of that bird and thinks that's for some reason they're smarter than you, right? Like, and I think wine has a lot of that. Like, just because you know the words doesn't mean that you can't, or don't know the words doesn't mean you can't enjoy it just as much as anybody else. You know, it just might be different language. So that's a really long-winded way to explain that.
No, I get it.
If I'm going to write something and force you to read it or ask you to read it, I'm gonna at least try to make it somewhat interesting.
They're fun. I like that one is described as poundable.
Oh yeah, that's an important quality, right? And I think you get what that means. I hope, right? Like the whole point is pleasure, right? It's supposed to be like a fun endeavor. It's supposed to be pleasing, and so a lot of times I think like snootiness can get in the way. But also on the other end, it can be like dumbed down and cynical, and that's not funny.
And when it says like hints of oak, like who eats oak?
Yeah. What is that?
I don't eat oak. Like I don't know what that means. So yeah, that's fun. I enjoy it.
Cool. Well,
So
thank you.
we've had a bunch of your wines, the El Norte, El Campo. I hope I say this right. Aguilion, La Montana. We've loved all of them.
All of them.
Is there a grape that you favor more than others that you enjoy working with more?
I think it's like anything where, for me, it's like in the moment, So, I'm always excited about new grapes to see what they're like, and then just so that's kind of exciting. But I don't know. So we talked about Cabernet Franc. That one's kind of exciting for me here because I didn't expect it to be something I would be, that would work here, and it's pretty distinctive, and I like what it does. But I don't know that I have a favorite, to be quite honest. But then again, I have a hard time. I need variety. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, for sure.
So do I have a favorite? The answer is no.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. That's perfect.
So you serve food there at the tasting room. Is that something that you've done from the beginning, or did you add that on? And do you ever just jump in the kitchen and create anything yourself?
So it's nothing we ever wanted. It's new. It's like a new COVID side hustle. You know what I mean? So it came about because COVID happened. We thought we might go out of business. We lost all our restaurant customers. So we lost those sales. We had to close our tasting room. But it's not like, it's not just like other businesses where you can like close the doors, turn off the lights, tell people to go home and we'll come back. Nature doesn't care, right? So we still have a vineyard to farm. So we still had to try to keep money coming in, keep those people employed. So, and then we wanted to reimagine our lives. We were spending a lot of time driving back and forth to Phoenix, doing promotion and events and doing things in other communities, and then not spending time in our own community doing stuff. And so we thought it might be an opportunity to kind of switch that up and spend more time at home and then do stuff that we could see the benefit of in the place we live, rather than driving all over the state and doing it in other places. So anyway, so long story short, we thought, and then we got kind of, it was like 2020 was a rough year for weather. We had a short crop, so it made harvest kind of boring. There just wasn't a lot to do. So, we had, you see how good the brew pub business model is for breweries. This community could use an outdoor, we had a bunch of outdoor space, so we thought we could open up, we'd have a place for people to eat outdoors. If tourism doesn't come back, because we rely very heavily on tourism, why are locals going to go out every week and taste the same wine they tasted last week or not? We're going to see them once or twice a year maybe. Anyway, so we decided to add food to the equation, because then we could at least, we could sell wine by the glass, we could make a little more money, we could give locals a reason to come in more frequently, because we could, and so everybody loves pizza, I love pizza. So we bought a little truck, we plopped a pizza oven on it, and I spent 6 months in the pizza wagon learning how to make pizza, and it was, like I said, good distraction, kept me from going mezzo during COVID, during a time we'd normally be out doing promo. and it allowed us to kind of reinvigorate and change our place. So, and then at the end of the day, it helps the wine show better. Like, I don't know, like, I'm not a big wine tasting guy. Like, I appreciate it, that people go out and taste wine, and it's good for us. But truthfully, it's like standing at a bar, having like 6 small sips of wine and then moving on to the next place. It's like, I don't know, it's like speed dating. It's weird. Like, it's I think it's way more difficult to sit down at the table with some food and like work through a glass or two and get to know them that way. Or even just a small taste with, food sitting at the table, I think is more pleasurable. So anyway, long story short, again, that's gonna be, I'm gonna finish every question, Ellie. Long story short. So food's new. I was in the kitchen for the first 6 months making pizza, figuring out how to make dough, trying to figure out, and like, we didn't want to do, it's kind of like the wine thing. We're not trying to be like the monkeys here, like to the Beatles. We're not trying to be cover band. We're not trying to make like authentic Italian pizza.
Right.
We're just trying to make pizza in Sonoita that tastes good, and I knew like we'd do a lot of takeout probably, or people would take it to go. So we wanted it to like reheat well.
Okay.
And so we just played around with flour and water. I started a sourdough starter in the barrel room at the end of harvest 2020. So that's what we use. That's what we use, and that's all we were saying. It was all sourdough to start. But then on that truck, there's major temperature fluctuations, and so to keep things consistent, and it's funny, like I kind of had this chip on my shoulder about like I didn't want to use commercial yeast, and it's funny. We had a winemaker from California visiting, a talented person, and I was kind of going through this thing where like the pizza looked great, but then they were flat, and like I didn't want to. I was trying to fix the sourdough thing, but had been talking to her about winemaking, and when we make wine, we try not to have like a dogma. We just want it to taste good. So we won't add yeast. We will add yeast. Do it with both. Just depending, looking at the stuff and doing what makes the most sense. And then she was like, "Well, if that's what you do with like wine, like why wouldn't you carry it over and get pizza?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, good point." So use a little bit of commercial yeast at the end just to make sure we get spring in the oven and they pop consistently. But most of the fermentation is with sourdough for like flavor. Anyway, so that's about the time I was losing my mind in there because it was just me and the pizza oven. And I could see that, so we started in October 2020. And then, in the spring, you're like, I have to get out of this truck because I got to get back to my other job. We're going to have a growing season starting, right? We got a bottle of wine. So one day Kevin Buell and his mom, Ann started the winery with her husband now. We're having lunch on the front porch. And I was dropping off their pizza and I was like, "Hey, Kevin," because he was like, just finishing college. I was like, "If you need a job, you want to learn how to make pizza, let me know. I need help." And so he showed up the next Friday, and then through him, I was able to wrangle some other folks. A guy named Jonathan Wilkie, who's local. He made pizza at what I think is one of the best pizza places, but restaurants, period, in Tucson, Time Market, and he lives right down the street from us here. He needed a job, so we got him to come on board, and they were able to get me out of the kitchen so I could get back into the wine world. So I get to collaborate with Jonathan for specials and pizzas and stuff, but I do not have to make pizza all day, every day, and I do not have to make dough anymore. So no, but every once in a while, maybe. Like we've had some fun folks come down. Like we had Charlene Badman's been down a couple times from F&B Phoenix and cooked on the wagon. And so, I've been in there with her. Our good friend John Hall, who had Canilla Bistro and worked at Bianco, and has worked at great restaurants all over the country, but now is like a private chef for .com billionaires in the Bay Area. He came out a month ago and we did a dinner, or 2 months ago. And so it's fun to get in there with them and work. So I worked with John making food the whole time he was here just because it's fun for me. Like this weekend I get to force things on people, which is great. We got a hot dog pizza because like it seems like the most American thing we could do.
Right.
But like it makes me laugh, but then it can be funny, but it also has to be delicious. So it's like we got hot dogs from the Tucson sausage shop that are really delicious, all beef wieners, little sauerkraut, some pickled mustard seeds, like little fireworks in your mouth, but basically like a really good hot dog on a pizza.
It sounds really good.
So anyways, yeah. So I do get to do stuff like that. It's fun. It's super fun.
So you have a casa and a casita for rent on the property, which they look beautiful. When did you guys start doing that?
That's another good question. Our name, so when we first moved here and looked at doing this thing, it was like the peak of like the real estate bubble, and so houses were expensive. Looking at building buildings was expensive. We planted the vineyard here in 03, 04, and there was this building in the center of town that had been sitting vacant forever, and it was cheaper. It was like we could get this commercial building that we could live in and we could make wine in and sell wine in. It was already there for like like half of what it would have cost us to buy a house and build a winery. You know what I mean? So I ended up here, but the kooky place that this joint is, I don't know if you're watching Northern Exposure. It's not that dissimilar. The commercial building next to us had an old couple living in it. They lived in it part-time. It's been part-time here and then part-time in Taos. But they got really tired of folks busting through their front door looking to try wine. Like the guy sitting there in his towel, strangers would wander through the front door thinking it was the winery. And so one day he just came over and was like, "You should buy my building." And it sounded great, right? He's like, "Buy my building, like just give me a little money down, and then I'll carry the note and it'll be real easy." And I was like, "Yeah, why not?" Like there's an abandoned tennis court in the back that I really wanted for storage space. And then too, I thought it'd be great because we could kind of curate our experience and have a place to put people up when they came to town. It didn't work out that easy. It ended up being a real tough customer. Like when we're in the middle of trying to buy this place, and one day you drive up and there's guys on the roof taking like the shingles off the roof, and you're like, "It's part of the building we're buying." He didn't show up to sign the papers for closing. He had like a heart attack in the middle of it. Drove to the hospital to see him, but then he still hated me for some reason. It was really weird.
Boy.
But anyways, so again, nothing I guess we ever wanted. We really just wanted to grow grapes and make wine. But we're in this place where it's not, you can't roll into it. Like the infrastructure's not all there. So you maybe have to do a little more than you want, or to make sure that the whole thing's viable. So whatever. So just whatever. We got this place next door. My wife Kelly has done a really great job making it cozy, and we just chip away at it, a little piece at a time, trying to make it look better all the time. And it's the kind of place we would want to stay if we went somewhere. So that's why we have it. It just made sense.
Well, it looks gorgeous.
Yeah, it does. It really does. So you did some digital wine research sessions through Zoom before. Is that something that you're going to offer again in the future?
Yeah, that was more COVID side hustle, right? So our tasting room was closed. We wanted to be able to reach out to our people, not lose touch. And so Ken Callaghan, Kelly, my wife, Lisa, Kent's wife, a really talented millennial. I think she's millennial, right? Somebody knows how to use a computer real good, and is into wine. And Kayla Kolosinski helped us put that together. And that was, again, just to stay sane during COVID, give people a reason to buy wine, because since we weren't seeing in the tasting room. And it was fun. It's funny. It was like real stressful for me. Never wanted to be on TV or whatever, entertain people in that way. But it helped us get through. It helped us sell wine. And it was super fun. Like during that time when we were super isolated because we were in Sonoita, and it was just like Kelly and I and the kids, and we worked together, we lived together. Nobody. So like we'd pop on this thing, and there'd be faces like we had dudes like people in DC, in New York, Mexico, like from all over.
It's really cool.
And it was kind of fun. And then we were able to get Charlene Badman again from F&B to pop on. We started running out of content, right? Because we only had so many tricks in our bag. So we talked her into coming on and doing, I think she did 4 pre-shows where she would did a little cooking show kind of deal where because we were trying to also figure out how we could help our brothers out, so and make it more fun. So you're gonna open a whole bottle of wine or 2, I think it was 2 or 3 bottles of wine. So we started suggesting, and restaurants were doing takeout. So we were like, these are all the places that you could get takeout for this week's show, and this is what on their menu we think would be good for this week's show with those wines. But then Charlene came in and offered to do like cooking segments. So we're like, what do people cook? So she did like a grilled cheese one. She did a cheeseburger one. I think we did a burrito one. But like my kid, Griffin, the 13-year-old, is still like, he's like, this is how we make grilled cheese the Charlene Badman way, which she puts mayonnaise on the outside instead of butter and then puts it in the thing. So you get like this eggy French toasty. It's brilliant. But anyway, that was fun. And so yes, we've talked, I think we did like a reboot because we quit during harvest of 2020, and then we did a reboot in the spring. We switched it up. We brought in guests. So we did other people's wines. And so we brought in some really cool folks. We got like Jason Haas from Tables Creek in Paso Robles. We got Andrew, who's now the winemaker at, I can't think, I'm blanking, but really great winery in Napa. We brought in some cool wine writers. We got Elaine Brown. We got Vicki Carroll from Hospice Durham, who runs Hospice. Anyway, it's cool. So we brought in guests. We talked about doing it again this summer. Everybody agreed to do it, and then we just got away from us. So I don't see why we wouldn't do it again, other than we just got to get around to doing it.
Cool. Really fun.
So we noticed on the wine club that is it only reds available on there?
No, it's mostly reds.
Okay.
Yeah, so we with our wine club, we do 4 shipments a year. You get to pick 3, 6, or 12 bottles. We pick the wines. If those aren't the wines you want, we're happy to swap them out. It's pretty low key. But most of what we make is red wine. And there's some people that are very particular and don't want to drink white wines. We're sensitive to that. But it's mostly red wines. There, typically we only make 2 white wines, 1 to 2 white wines a year, and a rosé every year. This year we're gonna add. There's this like a single barrel of Roussanne we really liked, so that's gonna be available at Wine Club. So anyway, we do put the whites and the rosé in there, but it's a small part. A small part of it. I mean, let's say we average 5,000 cases a year.
Wow.
Of that, like 900 is rosé and like 500 is white. So it's over.
Okay.
So what goals do you have in the future for Dos Cabezas?
That's I don't know. Stay alive, and have it make sense. Like there's never really been a plan, and that's probably not the brightest thing. But the plan was just to try to make wine here, have it taste good, and then pay our bills. And stay alive, not die in the process. And I think in some ways, we've matured, Kelly and I, and in other ways where I don't know what the word is. So what are our goals? I think our goal, we do have a goal for this year. It was really just I think we figured some things out. Like we know how to make wine. Like we got okay at it. So I think it's to make it sustainable in a sense, where like to figure out how to bring folks in to work with us so that we can do it longer, right? So our bodies don't fall apart. I think that's the goal. I'm gonna say that's the goal. To continue to try to make stuff that tastes good, provides pleasure for people. It's fun to be part of their lives and their special occasions. To continue to do that, but in a way that we can do it longer. Like we get older every year, and it'd be fun to continue to do this, but you can't. We start to realize that like there's things that you don't need to do personally. You can get some help. So I think that's where we're at. That's our goal. If that counts, that's my answer.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So where can we taste your wines at?
So obviously here in Sonoita at the tasting room, that's about 2.5 hours south of Phoenix. So not a bad drive. A beautiful drive, about an hour south of Tucson. And if you invest the time and the gasoline to get here, you'll find out that we're at least 10 to 15 degrees cooler, and we've got this real monsoon activity. I mean, we had dinner outside on the patio last night. It was in the high 60s. And it was
Wow.
Nice. It's the high 90s here.
It was like 100.
But we don't have that whole concrete pavement heat island things. So
Yeah.
when the sun starts to go down, it actually does cool off. But then in the valley, all the good wine shops seem to show us some love. So you can buy the ones there. AJ's has always been a good supporter.
Yeah.
ODV, Tracy Dempsey's and Chuck Dempsey's place in Tempe, where you can get great pastries. They carry all of our stuff, and they typically do tastings and things there.
Oh,
In Tucson,
Yeah.
Feast in Tucson does a really great job. Doug and his crew. You can try our stuff. There. I know I'm forgetting people. And then as far as restaurants go, Restaurant F&B represents well. They've always got some by the glass. Beckett's Table has a really great Arizona wine selection. Bianco's joints always do a good job for us, and they're around. So it's out there.
Okay.
I think you can always order it online, and we'll ship it to you.
That was my next question. And we can find all your socials and everything on there as well on your website.
Yeah, I think all those. I think we got lucky that they're all Dos Cabezas, and then for the pizza wagon, because it's a separate thing, it's all Pronghorn Pizza or Pronghorn.pizza.
Okay.
Last question. Since the podcast is called Drumming Up Conversation, and Justin is a prog metal drummer himself, who's your favorite drummer?
I'm gonna go with Dale Kroger from Melvins. I don't know. I was trying to think of who my favorite drummer is, and drummers don't get any love, and so anyway, I saw them I think 2 weeks ago, and he's great, and he's out there hustling. He's like opening for himself sometimes, like he's playing drums in the opening band,
Wow.
and I like that. So I'm gonna go with Dale from the Melvins.
All right.
Awesome.
Fair enough.
Perfect. Thank you so much
Yeah,
for taking
thank you
the
again
time
for
to be with
doing
us
this.
today.
Hey, no sweat. Thank you.
Thank you.
I wish you all the best.
Thank you. Same here.
All right.
Drumming up conversation.